Today, we're breaking down, can Bitcoin be money? Welcome to Bitcoin Bytes HQ, simple Bitcoin explainers. This is educational content only, not financial advice. Let's go. This topic matters right now because Bitcoin is often dismissed the moment people notice price fluctuations. People see the chart moving up and down and quickly conclude that something this volatile can't possibly function as money. If the value changes this much, the argument goes, how could anyone rely on it in daily life? That reaction feels reasonable if you're used to modern national currencies that appear relatively stable from one week to the next, but it quietly assumes that money is supposed to begin its life as stable. History suggests the opposite. Stability is usually something money earns over time, not something it starts with. Most foundational systems go through a long discovery phase. When electricity was first introduced, people questioned whether it was safe, useful, or worth the cost. When national highway systems were built, many doubted how often they would really be used. Even early banking systems faced skepticism before becoming everyday infrastructure. In each case, value wasn't obvious at the beginning. It emerged gradually as people learned how to use the new tool. Bitcoin today acts like many previous foundational transitions. Early on, people argue whether it's useful, whether it can be trusted, and, most importantly, how much it's actually worth. Those arguments are not signs of failure. They are signs of the system is still being explored and understood. A helpful way to anchor this is the internet in the 1990s. Early internet connections were slow, unreliable, and limited in what they could do. You could read text or send simple emails, but video streaming simply wasn't practical. Businesses debated whether the internet even mattered, and most people's daily lives barely depended on it. Over time, infrastructure improved, standards solidified, and usage expanded. Today, the internet is fast, cheap, and everywhere, supporting work, communication, navigation, finance, entertainment, and endless cat videos. Bitcoin today looks much more like that early internet than a finished monetary system. Its price fluctuates because people are still discovering what it's useful for and how much value to assign to it. Volatility reflects disagreement and experimentation, not failure. That's exactly what you'd expect before something becomes widely relied upon. It also helps to separate two ideas that often get blended together: money and payments. Money is about storing value and settling accounts over time. Payments are about convenience and speed. Historically, these roles were often separated and layered together later. Bitcoin's base layer focuses on being reliable and predictable first, not on competing with swipe speed payment networks on day one. Another pattern worth noticing is that money tends to develop in stages. First, people hold it as a store of value. Later, it becomes a medium of exchange. Only after that do prices start being quoted in it. Bitcoin already serves the first role for many people, even if it isn't widely used to price everyday goods yet. It allows value to be held outside traditional financial systems. For something to function as money, people need confidence that its rules won't change unexpectedly. Bitcoin's rules are enforced through verification rather than permission. Instead of trusting a single institution to manage the system, participants can independently check that the monetary rules are being followed. That predictability is a foundational requirement for any credible form of money. With that foundation in place, let's look at where people often get this wrong. One common misunderstanding is that volatility alone disqualifies something from being money. People believe this because they associate money with short-term predictability, like knowing roughly what groceries will cost next week. What this overlooks is that predictability usually comes after adoption. Early-stage money is noisy because its role and value are still being discovered. Another misunderstanding is the idea that Bitcoin must immediately replace existing currencies to count as money. When people don't see wages or rent priced in Bitcoin, they assume it has failed. Historically, new monetary systems coexist with old ones for long periods. They often begin in narrow roles, such as savings or settlement, before expanding into everyday use. A third misunderstanding is that Bitcoin is too slow to function as money because the base layer can only process a limited number of transactions per second. This comparison usually comes from looking at networks like Visa or systems like ACH. What's missed is that these systems achieve speed by relying on centralized intermediaries. Bitcoin's base layer is intentionally conservative. It prioritizes security, decentralization, and verifiability. Everyday payment speed is handled by the Lightning Network, which sits on top of Bitcoin. Lightning allows people to send payments instantly and cheaply without recording every transaction on the main blockchain. In theory, it can handle millions of transactions per second, limited mainly by network connectivity and available liquidity. A more grounded way to see why volatility isn't the main issue is to look at places where national currencies lose value quickly. In countries like Argentina, Venezuela, or parts of Africa, people aren't choosing Bitcoin because it is perfectly stable. They use it because their local currency is predictably losing purchasing power. Even when Bitcoin's price fluctuates, it can preserve value better than money that is constantly being devalued. In those environments, inflation is the real risk, not volatility. When I first started learning about Bitcoin, I assumed volatility and speed limitations meant it could never be real money. Stability and convenience felt like requirements that had to come first. What changed was realizing that many existing currencies only appear stable. Their purchasing power changes slowly enough that it feels normal, while Bitcoin's changes are visible and immediate. Bitcoin does not become stable because someone manages it carefully. It becomes stable, if it does, because enough people rely on it that its rules stop being questioned. Until then, volatility, scaling debates, and experimentation are simply part of the discovery process. A simple next step isn't to act, but to observe where Bitcoin is in its evolution. Ask whether it already functions as a store of value for some people and what that could enable over time. That's Can Bitcoin Be Money? Simplified. If this helped, like, share, and subscribe for more Bitcoin explainers. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. See you in the next one.